Hi everyone, Monique speaking, Intuitive Soul Savant. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the new subscribers. Please hit the thumbs up button and you'll receive all my videos. This channel is regarding shadow work, whether that's relative to astrology, Pluto's transit, the great transformer, or whether you're just doing inner child work, shadow work as part of your ascension and your awakening to your true self. So today's video is a companion video, and it goes with the last video that I did, ancestral zodiac signs, shadowy patterns. That was the last video. So I went through the astrological signs and some of the patterns that can show up from the shadow side of having families with predominant astrological energies through the ancestral lineage. Okay, now today, this could go with any star sign. These are hereditary addictions, patterns, and labels that we hear about as we grow up in different families. We may have been younger and overhearing the adults talk about different ones in the families and label them with these labels that I'm going to go through, or they could be more obvious and be outright addictive behaviors. Now, the reason these labels and addictions and patterns are so damaging to the human is because we are following what we're taught. And our job is to find our true self. That is our soul's journey, to embody the soul and to find out who we are as individual unique God seed beings. Okay, now some of these may be confronting. Some of these may trigger you. And if they do, I ask you to just leave and stop watching and soothe yourself. Okay, now for some of you who have had no idea about labels and patterns that are passed down through our ancestry, this might be really enlightening information for you. Now remember that behavior patterns and addictions and what have you can skip a generation, but these are linked in our DNA because our DNA is coded. So it may miss one generation and pop up in another generation. But the reason they're so dangerous is because through the ages, we have been in survival mode and we have taken on many addictions and habits just to soothe ourselves so we can survive life. Now, what happens when you have offspring is that these addictions, labels, patterns can take the focus on the energy that a child needs to be validated. So if our caregivers, ancestral caregivers, were so preoccupied with helping and soothing themselves with things from outside of themselves, then that is going to affect the validation and the energy and love and time that we can give to our offspring. I'm not blaming anybody here, please. There's no blame game, but we must become conscious for us to be able to be aware and to make a choice whether these are traits, patterns, addictions, behaviors that we want to carry through with us, if they're not authentically from us. Okay, so I'm going to start now. All right, so I'm going to start with the addictions. Okay, so we've got the obvious, the alcoholic, the addict. Now, you know, alcoholism goes way, way, way back to, in my studies, you know, there's always been alcohol. I think it got really bad in Europe in the 15th, 16th, 17th century. You know, 100 years ago, we used to drink beer, mild beer, you know, low alcohol beer instead of water because our water was too dirty. So, you know, you can imagine. So we've got alcoholism, And we've got addictions. Now, addictions could be to recreational drugs. They could be to very serious drugs that could affect a person's life. It could be pills, Valium, what have you. You know, long-range pills. Many children remember their parents, one parent, grandparent, what have you, that had to take pills. Food is an addiction, and that leads to obesity. That was my first addiction, was food, and I remember feeling that addiction at 11 years of age and wondering what that felt like, because I had withdrawal symptoms from sugar. So the pills could be just 1 or 2 pills, that antidepressants even, you know, it doesn't matter. But then we can move into like a hypochondriac sort of pill taking, and call them pill poppers, you know, and they're people that all the latest pills and health pills and pills, you know. I don't take pills, but if I see people taking, you know, large amounts of pills, I observe, okay? But that could be passed through the family. I know families growing up, I'd go there, the whole kitchen counter would be covered in pills. You know, so no judgment, that's just something that can be passed down, or that caregiver could be consumed by that so much that they're not there for their family. Okay, so other addictions, porn as an addiction. Now that isn't, okay, there was Playboy and what have you. That's a relatively modern addiction, is the porn addiction. However, I know I grew up with boys that in the bathrooms there was pile highs, Playboys and all those magazines. So those children were seeing that sort of thing, and that was in their lifestyle. Okay. Even people that just use alcohol and drugs. Okay, these come up in the family. Big drinkers may not have to be alcoholics, may be able to keep the job and all that sort of stuff. Controlled drinkers. You know, some families come from drinkers and others don't. As well as drugs, whether it's marijuana, heroin, ice. You know, we've got 3-generation drug users here in Australia that we're now aware of. Okay, now workaholism is an addiction, and to me, it's one of the toughest ones, because it takes you physically away from your family. Mum and dad go to work, nan and papa go to work, they go to work, and to me that's chasing money. And you know, back in the 60s, 70s, coming out of the war, you know, it's the baby boomers that built and rebuilt this what we're in now. And you know, they were working 7 days a week, and then a lot of us children were dragged into those family businesses, or we became latchkey kids. Okay, either way, our little childhood self, you know, was not on it at that point, and we had to become little adults to chase money. And in my experience, that ended up leading Nellie to bankruptcy, my parents' bankruptcy. But I helped them out of that by working very hard in their little business. And you know, then I went bankrupt, but no one was there to help me. So do you see how the patterns follow down? That pattern, that workaholism, can come from lack and poverty mentality. Strive to get somewhere in life. However, I've found that doesn't work. So yeah, that doesn't work. Do 20% of the work that gives you 80% of success, for sure. So workaholism, big one, and especially in society. Society doesn't help. You know, cost of living, mortgages, all that thing, just to get home. You know, but this can really affect the children because they're not getting validated, and other people are having to care for them. Other people with different values, different labels, different patterns. Okay, perfectionism. That's a big one, because that can lead to being a really high-strung parent. Okay, which can make everybody nervous, which is affecting the sympathetic nervous system. So perfectionism, being too tough on the kids and the offspring. You know, this can go back to grandparents as well, and it's us too, that we could have these expectations on our children. We can be harsh, critical, verbally abusive. And if we learn that behavior, we might say, I'm not going to treat my children that way. And you betcha, when it comes to pressure and stress and frustration, they're the first things that you'll reach out for, because that's what you're comfortable with. And a lot of people say, yeah, well, I was raised that way and it didn't do me any harm. Yeah. So harsh, critical, verbally abusive. And this can be just regular in a family. Chronically ill and hypochondria. You know, this can be passed down through the family. And, you know, when it's a health issue, it's like, you know, we're in denial, but it's okay because it's a health issue. So it looks okay on the outside. However, you know, with observation and awareness and honesty, we can actually see whether that has been an issue in our family's life. Hypochondriacs, you know who these people are, because when you ring them to say hi to them, for the first 5-10 minutes, all they've got to tell you about is what the doctor said. And I mean, this is understandable for our elderly today, because really their life is filled with going to the doctors and doing these sort of things. But I'm just talking generally young healthy parents, young healthy people that are always finding a reason or something's wrong with them. And even when they're emotional, they can pick a health reason to explain why they're emotional, when really it could be something deeper within. You know, there could be a great cook in the family. And with that being a great cook, great entertainer, what happened? They can always put themselves last. They can feed themselves last. They can give the biggest food, the biggest plate, the best cut of meat to everybody else. And you might think that's a nice thing. Well, actually, when you really look into it, it's a pattern. And a lot of it comes from Catholicism and the old Christian control. And, you know, that was look after everybody else and put yourself last. How dare you put yourself first? You know, and that can be patterned down. If we're learning from a mother that's like that, then maybe that's been drummed into us, and that's how we are. So that when we are serving food, we would never give ourselves the best. And there's a conflict when we're doing it. This has happened to me. Okay, now to the men. Now, this is old language, of course, but this could be relative to grandparents, because this is old language. And where all these patterns and addictions and what have you come from? They come from a very comprehensive list from a 12-step program. Now, I'm not here to promote that program. However, if you're attracted to that program, which I've worked many, many years in, please go to the bottom of the description there, and that 12-step program information will be there for you. This is part of the step work from the workbook. Okay, it's so comprehensive. I couldn't have got this list from anywhere else. So people, when they're in this program, when they're ready to look at the family, because we have to look back to understand what we've taken on today. Okay, we've got to look back to go, right, I picked that up, I picked that up, I picked that up. So this list today is just to open your mind, and you can even add to this list, because how many families have we got on the planet, and how many behaviours are there out there that humanity has taken on to try to soothe itself and get through life? Okay, so don't giggle. Ladies' man, gigolo, player, or skirt chaser. Now, that's what these were names or labels for old guys back in the day. Okay, so now you could call them something different. There's probably modern names out there that I'm too old to even know about. Street talk. So that's having, you know, a skirt chaser in the family, a father that's always looking at the man, or these hints of affairs, or, you know, that sort of thing. And that can affect the rest of the family, and it can be taught, that behavior as well. Okay, there's sexual aggression, not safe people. in the family. You could have a nudist in the family that likes to get around naked all the time. Now that's fine for them, but for the other members of the family, they may choose not to be a nudist. That may not be their jam. They might be very confronted with that nudity, and there's a fine line. There's a very fine line with that sexual choice. Yeah. Argumentative can run in the family. This is what we do. We just argue with you. Blame. We can blame others. That's what we do. We always blame others. Snobbery is another one in a family, and that usually snobbery can also go with lack and poverty mentality. Snobbery is where the family is taught to judge the person or to judge anybody's, to look at others and say they're okay because they've got a lovely house, they've got lots of money, they've got a lovely car. So looking at people with wealth and judging them against people in poverty and saying people with money are safe and okay and are worth it, and the rest are losers. And so that can be a big belief system in a family. Excludes, ices out, cuts off. That's a family pattern. When that family pattern can't, when the people can't or haven't learned to communicate their needs, speak up for themselves, defend themselves, you know, that sort of a family isn't used to those behaviors. So if you were to do that, you'd be cut off. Or if you're not doing what we want, that's it. You're out of the will. You're gone. You're iced out. You're excluded. And that hurts, man. That hurts in a family, but that's a pattern. That's a pattern. Now, another addiction and pattern, I guess you could say, is a religion addiction. I had a religious addiction, and until I read a book about it, I didn't know I had a religious addiction. But then when I look back through the family, my nan had a religious addiction. Her sister was a nun. My godmother, Arnie, she went to the nunnery. So, you know, my nan was an incest victim too, and she went to religion to try to deal with that because she never let us know until her deathbed. And she had a child through that incest. So, you know, that was a biggie. That's a big one. Religious addiction. Undependable, you know, so some family patterns can just be undependable. You can't rely on them. There's no follow through. They don't do their word, right? And you get labels for this, you know, you get recognized for these. Heavy debt, borrowing money, big spender, having flashy clothes, or having to have designer stuff these days. You know, your kids and everybody could be going out so you can walk around looking amazing, or that could have been grandma, or that could have been mum. You know, and that's all around money. And then there could be workaholism to try to get the money. Oh, look, it's just roots, they call them. They call them family roots, and you can see why. Working a lot, worrying a lot, worrying a lot. So somebody who's being taught to worry, we just worry, that's what we do, can become a little neurotic, okay? And we have to understand that all these behaviours can make the children and the offspring nervous and shaky, and we're not even aware of it. We're not even aware of it. The long-term effects of our behaviour and family behaviours. And this is why humanity's evolving. We've got to get in and clean all this up. We don't want to keep repeating the past. It hasn't got us too far. And look at the world at the moment. You know, we're all fighting. Worrying a lot. Emotionally ill, mental health issues. Now, you know, we've got to be careful around this one. You know, I know I met kids, I went to school with kids that you couldn't go to their house because mum was always in bed, and we never knew why she was in bed, and the covers were, the you know, the blinds are closed, and yeah, that's emotionally ill, you know. And it was just hard on the kids. They were embarrassed about that, that their parent wasn't there for them, and that they couldn't have all the kids over and all of that sort of thing, you know. And especially if family ends up in psychiatric wards and something, there could be a real stigma about that, real embarrassment about that, you know. And another one is suicide. Suicide is a pattern through the family. I've met families that much suicide. In my family, no suicide, right? But we got all the addictions in the world, you know, so I think we've got enough. Well, I got all the addictions in the world, so, you know, we can't have everything, I guess, thank God. So with emotionally ill, you know, there could be a sickly child in the family, oversensitive child, like that's a label. Oh, he's oversensitive, you know. Vanity, vain people in front of the mirror, thinking they're better than everybody, thinking they're above others. We could have, you know, thieves and dodgy members of our family, prison inmates, what have you. That's a pattern that can run through the family. You know, people pleasing, big one, goes with the religious one as well. Being a martyr. You know, this has all been taught behavior, all patterns, and there's labels for those people in our family. Yeah, so it's good to do a big what we do in our 12-step group, we do the family tree, and that just gives us the whole picture. Then we don't blame ourselves for anything, any patterns and what have you, addictions that we've carried through with, and it takes the whole pressure off us and makes everybody responsible. And that's what we need. We need everybody, all humanity, to be responsible for what's going on with humanity, instead of pointing the fingers and polarizing and judging each other, because, you know, we're all responsible, we're all one. All right. So, of course, in the family, there could be violence, slapping others, pinching. I remember being pinched, as a child, it hurt. Threatened, you know, glorified fighting when there's boys, and holding one down, letting them punch them. That even happened with my girl family, you know, one always ended up in tears. Power plays in that, wrestling inappropriately, you know, these are all behaviors, but they can affect the offspring and everybody in general. Okay, I think I got through my list. Yeah, I have. I've got through my list. So they're just some ideas you could add. Please pop in the comments if you know of any others that you've seen in your family. And remember, we're not judging. We are coming to find our true self. And the way you find your true self is you find out what you're not. You take responsibility for that. And there's a healing. There's a healing. There's a releasing. There's a freedom. And self-love. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope, you know, it could help somebody out there. And I'll see you soon. All right. So if you'd like any questions, you can email me or go to my website. Okay. Thank you. Namaste. Love you. Big love.